My pleasure today to introduce Sonca. She is our new postdoc in second language acquisition. And you can't imagine how happy I am to have her here. So we didn't know it before Sonca came here, but we have connections that I think she's going to talk about. But she has her PhD from Iowa State University. And after Dr. Palmer left us, she became, and she is our specialist now in language assessment. And that's what she's going to be talking about today in her presentation, Investigation into the Factor Structure of a Local English Placement Test of Oral Communication. And I'll turn the time over to Sonca.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Christensen. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, professors to be to come here for my presentation. Is very late hour in the afternoon. Today I'm going to talk about the factor structure of a local English placement test of oral communication. I am here on behalf of my team. This is my research team. So we are in a team with 3 people. Dr. Yoon-Duk Choi, she is now working in a university in South Korea, and Dr. Gary Oki, who's now working at Iowa State University. And very interesting fact, here is Dr. Gary Oki used to be a graduate student at this Department of Linguistics, our Department of Linguistics. And then Dr. Gary Oki is also students of Dr. Christensen and Dr. Palmer's many years ago. Yeah, so it's very interesting. We have like a circle. We are very happy to be given an opportunity to talk about project here. So all 3 of us, but Dr. Yoon-Duk Choi and Dr. Gary Oki cannot join with me today and with us today. Why did we do this project? So in 2016, Iowa State University requires to have an oral communication course for international students who really needed language support during the first years of studies. And then at that time, I was a graduate student at the Department of English, and then Dr. Yoon-Duk Choi was also a graduate student. And then 2 of us were working together under the supervision Dr. Gary Oki. So 3 of us were working together on this project. And then we conducted a needs analysis to identify speaking skills and speaking tasks required in the university settings. And then we also created a curriculum for academic speaking and pronunciation course, which is required by Iowa State University. And while we were creating a curriculum for the course, we were also developing a test that is English Placement Test of Oral Communication, EPT OC, in order to identify students who needed to take the course. And then it took us a long time to develop the test. And we started writing a test specification, deciding on test features and topics, creating simple materials and rating scales. After we have everything, we have all the materials reviewed by language assessment experts. And then after many rounds of revision, we did pilot testing. So the test aims to measure test takers' ability to orally communicate with professors, teaching assistants, and peers individually and in pairs in university context. And the test targets 4 subconstructs of oral communication ability, including fluency, interactional competence, pronunciation or comprehensibility, and grammar and vocabulary. So we have four subconstruct of oral ability measured by the test. So the test includes two tasks. The first task is the interview task. And you can see in the screen here, this is the simple prompt. The simple prompt for the speaking, the interview task, and that is what the students see. Like that is a student, and then she is taking the test, and that is me. This is me. So we did pilot testing. So students see the pictures, but she doesn't see the questions. So we have 3 questions for the interview, and then the examiners read the questions, and then the test takers has 1 minute to answer each of the questions. So we have 3 questions related to the picture. So after the student takes the interview task, they also take another, which is peer discussion task. So in this peer discussion task, 2 students takes the task together, student A and B, and then they are given a topic, and then they have to defend the topic for 4 minutes. So their performances are evaluated according to 4 subconstructs that we define for the test. So fluency, pronunciation, interactional competence, vocabulary, and grammar. So like the other language tests, our locally developed language tests should be validated, and we need validity evidence in order to justify the scores, justifies score interpretation and use. So we wanted to see whether the targeted internal factor structure of the test can be supported or not. So we have 3 research questions. The first one, we want to see whether a correlated 4-factor model with fluency, interactional competence, pronunciation, comprehensibility, and grammar and vocabulary, or only 1-factor model with a general construct of oral communication, which one fits the EPT OC scores better. The second question we have here is we wanted to see whether interview tasks or peer discussion tasks, whether they effectively measure the 4 targeted subconstruct underlying the EPT OC, whether they measure effectively or not. Question number 3, we wanted to see whether 4 targeted subconstructs are distinct from each other or not, how correlated they are. So in 2017, we started collecting data. We started administering the test to the very first group of students, 338 students. And we got 2,700 analytic rating scores from 338 students. And then we used the confirmatory factor analysis framework in order to analyze the data. And before using this, we checked the assumptions of CFA, and all the assumptions of a CFA were satisfied. So this is the result, the descriptive statistics of the test. So if you see here, the in table 1, we the average score for all of the subconstructs for 2 tasks, they are quite the same, ranging from 2.64 to 2.96. So they are quite the same, suggesting that the difficulty of 2 tasks was comparable. And then for the test reliability, for the interview, we have the value of 0.85, and for the discussion task, 0.89, suggesting that the test was reliable. And we also checked the inter-rating reliability, And we got 0.76 for interrate and reliability, suggesting that the rating was reliable. So back to the first question, we wanted to see whether a correlated 4-factor model or only 1-factor model fix the data better. So that is the model for 4 factors, and this model hypothesized the EPT's test is measured by 4 subconstructs: pronunciation, fluency, grammar, vocabulary, and interactional competence. And the rectangular boxes here, they represent the observed variables or observed scores. And then we also check 1-factor model. So this model hypothesized the test measures only one general ability, which is oral communication. So this is the result when we compare 2 models. This table, we see this row. This row is the values for the single factor model, and then this one is for 4-factor models. And we check the indices to see which one works better. So for this one, SRMR, that is standardized root mean square residual, and if the value is 0.08 or below, that suggests the models, so the model fits the data well. And we can see the values for both models, 0.04 for 4-factor models and 0.06 for 1-factor model. They are both below 0.06, but for this one, for 4-factor model, is quite it is smaller than the value for 1-factor model. And then we also look at the CFI comparative fit index. So if the value is close to 0.95, that means the model fits the data well. And we have the value here for 4-factor models, 0.93, which is very close to 0.95, and which is higher than the value for 1-factor or single-factor model. We also look at RMSEA, that is root mean square error of approximation, and the value should be 0.06 or below. But in here we have these 2 values, they're higher than 0.06. We also tried to figure out the problem. So then we check the residuals, but we didn't see any large residuals suggesting that the model was inappropriate. So based on these 2 value, SRMR and then CFI, we can see that these indices favored 4-factor model over single-factor model. So we will use 4-factor model for the next analysis. So for we examine the effectiveness of interview and pair discussion tasks in measuring oral communication ability. And then so if we look at the number here, these are factor loadings. It ranges from 0.72 to 0.9, so they are very high numbers. So these high factor loadings suggest that the observed scores from these. So T1 means task 1 individual, T2 means pair discussion, PR is pronunciation, FL fluency, GV is grammar vocabulary, and IC is interactional competence. So we have high factor loadings here. That means the observed scores from these are the observed variables here, good indicators of the corresponding targeted the construct here. But when we so that means the two tasks reflect very well the oral communication ability. And when we compare the two tasks, for task 1 and task 2, the factor loadings for task 1 and factor loadings for task 2, we can see that all of the values for task 2, the factor loadings for task 2 are higher than the factor loadings for task 1. That suggests that the pair discussion task measures these subconstructs, pronunciation, fluency, grammar, vocabulary, and IC slightly better than the interview task. So the last questions, we wanted to see that whether these 4 subconstructs are distinct from each other or not. We check this part of the model. And we can see in here the correlation values between fluency and grammar vocabulary is very high. 0.99 is almost 1. And it's also very high for correlation between fluency and IC, as well as grammar vocabulary and interactional competence. So it's so high. So that means these 3 subconstructs very they're closely related to be considered separate. But if we look at the correlation between pronunciation and the other 3 subconstructs, we can see the values are a bit lower. So we have 1.71 for correlation between pronunciation and IC, 0.76 correlation between pronunciation and fluency. So that means pronunciation is correlated with the other 3s, but it's not very closely related. So pronunciation is correlated, but somewhat distinct from the other 3. So based on the findings, we can say that the EPT OC scores can be interpreted as test takers' speaking ability to interact with interlocutors fluently, with accurate use of vocabulary and grammar, and with proper control of phonology in university context. And then we can see that a correlated 4-factor model is favored over the single factor model. So that sheds light on the nature of speaking construct, substantiating a long-standing theoretical position. So in our previous literature from Bashman and Palmer's, Dr. Palmer's here, it's very long a time ago in 1981, and the other research that any construct of speaking or speech is obviously going to be multifaceted. And both task interview and discussion tasks were quite effective in measuring the targeted subconstructs. So that also gives another layer of evidence of construct validity of the test, supporting the intended interpretation of the OC test scores. But we didn't have the distinctive distinctions among 3 subconstructs. And one possible explanation that we have is that might be because of halo effect. when raters tended to give the same scores across criteria. At that time, we had only one shot in 3-hour rate training, and that might have been insufficient to assist raters in making clear distinctions among the subconstructs. So our study took only quantitative approach. So it's still not clear if our hypothesis about rater effects true. So more research should be done in order to examine raters' rating behaviors and how raters apply the scoring rubric when they rate by using interviews or simulated records. So despite some of the limitations I have mentioned, the study makes contributions to second language oral assessment. In conclusions, the findings not only illuminate the multifaceted factor structure of OC construct and how it can be impacted by the use of interview and peer discussion tasks, but also suggest that even carefully designed assessment need to be constantly evaluated. And remedies should be conducted for quality assurance when limitations are identified. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you.